I'll leave your former fiancé's keepsake with you, big sis." What my younger sister left behind was the daughter born between her and my former fiancé. 5 years later, my sister, who had changed completely, suddenly demanded, "I want my daughter back." What could possibly be the reason behind this? I am 28-year-old Karen Hall. I graduated from a vocational school and work as a nurse. My days are busy, going back and forth between the hospital and home, but even so, someone has appeared who makes me think about marriage. That person was Joey. He works as a medical representative at a pharmaceutical company, and we often met at work. As we talked more and more, we became close, and eventually started dating. Naturally, the conversation moved towards marriage. I immediately contacted my parents and decided to bring him home to introduce him. On the day we were welcomed, I brought the nervous Joey to my parents' house. "Dad, Mom, this is Joey. We're dating with marriage in mind." My parents warmly welcomed him and blessed our marriage. While the four of us were having a lively conversation, a voice coming from the entrance suddenly said, "Big sis, you were here. Ah, the troublesome one has returned." It was my sister, 2 years younger than me, Sandra. When Sandra entered the living room, she looked around at everyone and began introducing herself with sparkling eyes. "What? Big sis's friend? Nice to meet you. I'm Sandra, her sister." Sandra and I were sisters with completely opposite personalities and interests. I liked reading books and preferred simple and calm clothing. On the other hand, Sandra enjoyed shopping and always wore glamorous clothes. She worked at an apparel shop. "Sandra, wasn't today a workday for you?" I asked with a bit of surprise. "Yes, it was. But something seemed off about Mom and Dad today, so I came home early." And I was right. Exactly as expected. I had a feeling something would happen, so I chose my sister's workday to come. What was that something? Yes, ever since we were young, my sister had a habit of trying to steal my boyfriends. It was most evident when I was in my 3rd year of high school. My sister, attending a different high school, suddenly showed up at my school one day. When I asked why, she said it was because she liked my boyfriend. At first, I didn't take her seriously, so the 3 of us went out together occasionally. But eventually, I realized his heart was leaning towards her. That time, I was greatly shocked but told myself, it wasn't that she stole him from me. It was my fault for spending time together as 3. Thinking this way helped me come to terms with it. Afterward, I went to vocational school, filling my schedule with studies and part-time jobs. Being busy reduced the time I had to face my sister at home. Eventually, I started dating a senior I met at my part-time job. While enjoying a movie date with him on a holiday, I unexpectedly bumped into my sister at the cinema. "Ah, big sis. What a coincidence to meet you here. Is this your boyfriend?" "Ah, yes." "Wow, he looks mature and wonderful. I'm jealous you're dating such a handsome guy." "Huh. But Sandra, you have a boyfriend, right?" "My ex from before? He failed his university entrance exams and is now cramming at a prep school, so we broke up because he hardly has time to hang out." "What? Maybe I should hang out with you guys next time." As she said this, it seemed like Sandra was aiming for my boyfriend. "Stop joking around. We have plans now, so we're going to leave." Even as I hurriedly left the scene, it was clear from Sandra's gaze that she was interested in him. If things continued this way, the nightmare from high school would repeat itself. I had to somehow reduce the chances of Sandra and him meeting. That was my resolution. Yet Sandra began to find reasons to show up at my part-time job, and eventually, she naturally took my boyfriend away. That's why I didn't want to introduce my fiancé to my sister. It seemed that Sandra had a nature of being interested precisely because he was my lover. However, by now I thought she would have calmed down. We had both grown up, and surely Sandra must have had someone else now. After finishing the greetings at my parents' house and preparing to leave, Sandra suddenly came over to Joey. Despite feeling anxious, Sandra greeted him with a smile. "Mr. Joey, please take good care of my sister." Seeing this, I felt a bit relieved. Thus, we began preparing for our wedding. There was a lot to do, like choosing the venue and trying on dresses. "When choosing a dress," Sandra said, "I want to see the dresses too," and ended up coming along. Wedding dresses are something many women admire, and Sandra probably wanted to take the opportunity to see various options. While I tried on several dresses, Sandra advised, "I think this one suits you better." Not only did she give advice, but she also spoke to Joey. "Don't you think this suits her better?" and seemed to be having a good time. Huh? I felt like they had become quite friendly while I wasn't looking, but maybe it was just my imagination. Time passed, and there was 1 month left until the wedding. However, one day Sandra called me out saying, "We need to talk." When I arrived at the designated place, I wondered why Joey was there too. A bad premonition surged through me. "Why are you two together?" The first thing Sandra said was, "Sorry, big sis. I've fallen in love with Joey." "What? You're joking, right? The wedding is next month." Joey then spoke up. "Karen, I'm sorry. You see, we've actually been dating." "Since when?" "We exchanged contact details during the dress fitting and met a couple of times after that." And when I asked, Sandra seemed as if she had been waiting for this moment and replied, "I'm really sorry, but I'm pregnant." Surprisingly, I wasn't too shocked. Everything felt like a repetitive sequence of events. Maybe somewhere deep down, I had anticipated this situation. "Karen, I'm really sorry. We plan to visit your parents next." Joey appeared genuinely apologetic, but to me it seemed like Sandra had planned this all along. Still, I didn't accept it as something inevitable. The shock was too much, and I fainted. When I opened my eyes next, I was in the hospital. My parents were in front of me, their expressions somber. "What happened to Sandra?" When I asked, Dad coldly replied, "I've cut ties with her. Forget about your fiancé too, Karen. Understand." While Dad said this, Mom was just crying. 5 years have passed. The wound from having my fiancé stolen by my sister was deep, and I couldn't step into a new relationship. Trying to forget about my sister and her family, I changed jobs and immersed myself in my work. As a result, I was promoted to head nurse. While focusing on my job, I met someone who was kind to me. He was a doctor working in the same hospital. As our relationship developed, I began to envision a future with him, and we eventually decided to marry. Meanwhile, Sandra had married Joey, but I later found out that the pregnancy story at the time was a lie. After I collapsed, Sandra was disowned by Dad, but Mom, concerned about her, had contacted her a few times. However, when Mom asked over the phone, "How are you feeling? How's the baby?" Sandra answered as if nothing had happened. "What? Baby? I actually wasn't pregnant. It was a misunderstanding," she replied, laughing. "I don't know the truth, but I believe it wasn't a misunderstanding but a plan by Sandra." However, all that is in the past now. Sandra and my former fiancé were now irrelevant to me. One day, thinking it was a work call, I answered the phone without checking the screen and was surprised. "Big sis, it's been 5 years, hasn't it? How are you?" I couldn't understand how she could say such a thing so casually. As I remained silent, Sandra continued, "Ha! Are you still mad about that time? I thought you'd completely forgotten." "What?" "More importantly, can you look after my child for a bit?" "What?" "You weren't pregnant that time, right? I know that." "How old are you talking about? I wasn't pregnant back then, but now I have a cute little girl." "Congratulations. It's good your lie turned true. Well then." "Wait a minute. Don't just hang up. I want you to look after her," Sandra asked as if she were leaving a pet with me. "Why don't you tell your husband?" Responding irritably to her insensitive request, I heard Sandra laughing over the phone. Husband? You mean Joey? We've been separated for a long time. What? We separated a while ago. We were having a dispute over custody of the child, but now he seems to have remarried and has children. I wish he had taken my daughter too. No luck. But now I have a new boyfriend, and we have a date planned, so I need you to look after the child during that time. I could hear a child crying in the background over the phone. Surprised by my sister's selfishness, I said, "Are you in a situation to be dating? It's your child. Take care of her properly." Then, Sandra, sounding angry, said, "You have no right to say that to me. Since I have no man supporting me now, I need to find a new one. Besides, it's rare to find a man who will date a woman with a child. You're not reliable." With that, she hung up the phone unilaterally. Since then, there has been no contact from Sandra. I don't know the details, but it seems that the marriage that started with adultery didn't last long. I'm not entirely sure about the circumstances under which Sandra took custody of the child, but I can somewhat understand. I think that my former fiancé, her husband, deliberately said he would take the daughter to provoke Sandra's resistance. Sandra has a personality that suddenly wants something when it seems someone else might get it. It's been 10 years since Sandra left home, and 4 years since that last call from her. It has been 5 years since I married my husband, but we still don't have children. Maybe it will just be the two of us from now on. I felt a bit lonely, but I thought we would continue to have peaceful days. That was until recently. One day, the doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, there was my sister, Sandra. She looked much the same as she did 10 years ago at first glance, but on closer inspection, she was heavily made up and the smell of her perfume was strong. She was wearing a flashy dress that emphasized her figure and was carrying a rather large carry bag. "What's going on?" "Big sis, it's been a while. I have a favor to ask. Can you take care of this little girl for me?" As she said this, Sandra pulled the arm of a small girl standing next to her and pushed her in front of me. The child was wearing a red school bag and also carrying a small backpack. "What?" "This is Linda. She's just turned 6 and started first grade. She has a cute face like mine, doesn't she? But I don't need her anymore, so I thought I'd give her to you." "I don't need her?" What was she talking about? As she said this, Linda quietly looked down. "Give her away." "Are you serious? She's your child. But my current boyfriend is going overseas." And he said, "Let's go together, it's tough with a child, right? Besides, he doesn't even know I have a child. So giving her to you kills 2 birds with 1 stone." What? Why? Despite Linda being right beside her, Sandra continued to talk nonchalantly. "Because she's the child of your former fiancé whom you loved. Also, I'm leaving tonight, and I've already terminated my lease. If you don't take her, she'll have nowhere to go. I don't want to cause trouble, and you're the only person I can ask, please." Saying this, Sandra pushed her own child's back firmly. Shocked, I tried to catch Linda, who was about to fall, and we both ended up falling to the ground. "Wait a minute," I shouted involuntarily, but Sandra didn't look back and kept walking away. What a thing to do! I knew she was self-centered, but I never imagined it to this extent. However, I couldn't abandon this child. No matter how terrible the parent, the child is innocent. For now, I called out to Linda, "Come inside first. Let's have some juice." Although I said this, Linda entered the house silently, without saying a word. When we fell together, I noticed that Linda was quite thin for her age and seemed frail. As a nurse, I immediately realized that her growth was delayed compared to other children. Although she was in the first grade, her build was like that of a preschooler, and her cheeks seemed hollow. Her long hair was messy, with dirt and dandruff in it. The clothes she wore were tattered, stained, and the collar and cuffs were stretched out. When I brought out some snacks and juice that children usually like, Linda grabbed them and ate voraciously. "What?" I was shocked as Linda continued to eat without saying a word. "Linda, haven't you eaten anything today?" There was no response to my question. From her behavior, it seemed likely that Sandra had not been feeding her properly. I quickly contacted my parents and husband to explain the situation. I also tried to contact Sandra, but it was already too late. Sandra had disappeared after leaving the child and had since become completely unreachable. As a result, Linda ended up staying at my house for a while. When I checked her belongings, there were only school supplies and minimal changes of clothes. There were no childlike items such as toys or picture books in Linda's bag. I found a letter from the school in her school bag and used it as a clue to meet directly with her teacher and the principal. During the conversation, I came across an even more surprising fact. Linda occasionally behaved violently towards her classmates, and the school had contacted the family several times about it. However, Sandra had ignored all these contacts, and as a result, Linda had repeatedly caused trouble in the class. In addition to being isolated without friends, she seemed to not have been provided with adequate meals, as she lacked concentration during classes and was voracious during lunch. This led to other children calling her dirty, which sometimes escalated into fights. The school was concerned about Linda's home environment and was considering reporting to Child Protective Services. That's when I informed the school that we, as her relatives, were willing to take proper care of Linda. After discussing with my husband and parents, we decided to adopt Linda. However, with her mother, Sandra, missing, the proceedings were not expected to go smoothly. However, Linda could decide on adoption herself once she turned 15. We were prepared for it to take time. Nevertheless, we decided to take on the responsibility of raising Linda. Above all, even if Sandra returned, I felt that she was utterly incapable of raising Linda as a mother. However, raising Linda was not an easy task. At first, Linda was quiet, but gradually she began to open up and interact more. However, when she did speak, she would say things like, "Be quiet. Don't come near me." And sometimes she would give us glaring looks. I felt that Linda had come this far without experiencing parental love. The words she uttered were probably what she frequently encountered herself. That's why we decided to consistently shower Linda with patience and affection. We didn't spoil her but taught her the difference between right and wrong, correcting mistakes on the spot. We made sure she bathed every day, trimmed her overgrown hair, and provided her with fitting clothes. When there were issues at school, I immediately went to discuss them, apologizing to the other parents while also listening to Linda's side. Initially, Linda was very reserved, but as I patiently waited, she muttered, "They told me not to come close because I'm dirty." "Oh, that must have been very unpleasant for you," I said. When I spoke, Linda suddenly looked up and stared into my eyes. Tears gradually appeared in her eyes, and eventually she began to cry loudly, her face contorting with emotion. Linda probably never had her feelings understood by anyone before. I gently embraced her and stayed by her side until her tears subsided. This became a turning point, and we slowly started building a relationship like that of a parent and child. When we went to the zoo or an amusement park, Linda's eyes sparkled as she enjoyed her first experiences. Mealtime was initially challenging. Linda wouldn't eat any vegetables and sometimes wandered away from the table during meals. However, as I continued to serve creatively prepared dishes, she eventually asked for them again, saying, "Make this again, and this is delicious," with a smile. Linda, who had been skinny, gradually gained a bit and grew to be about the same size as other children her age. As Linda's demeanor brightened, she gradually fit in more at school and seemed to have made friends. She began to smile more, and such changes in Linda reassured us. When she reached the middle grades of elementary school, Linda said, "I want to learn to dance." She heard about a dance club from a close friend and became interested herself. It was a great joy for us as a couple that she had found something to be passionate about. When she started dancing, Linda showed potential and quickly improved, eventually being recommended for a scholarship by the club. However, becoming a scholarship student meant that, in addition to regular lessons, she needed to attend special sessions with other clubs on weekends. It was a hassle to drop her off and pick her up, but if it meant Linda could enjoy herself and find her dreams, I thought it was worth it. As she continued her lessons and participated in a performance, to our surprise, Linda was scouted. She was scouted from an agency known for producing many famous child actors, and they saw potential in Linda's expressive dancing and expected she might have talent in acting as well. When I told Linda about it, she said she wanted to try it, so we decided to let her join the agency. A year later, Linda finally made her debut as a child actress. In her debut role, she played the younger sister of the main character in a drama, and because the project was highly talked about, Linda's name gradually became known to the public. However, just as her career was taking off, that sister of mine showed up again. Our parents at home were also supportive of Linda's activities, but then my mother suddenly suffered a myocardial infarction and passed away. Wrapped in deep sorrow, we conducted the funeral. As Linda attended the funeral as a granddaughter, from among the attendees, voices could be heard. "Hey, isn't that Linda, the girl from that drama?" "Really? She's a relative?" "It's my first time seeing her for real." By then, Linda had already become a well-known figure. At that moment, a deafening voice exclaimed, "Yahoo! Long time no see." When I turned around, there was my sister. She might have returned from abroad for the first time in a while. Despite it being a funeral, she wore a flashy pink dress and sunglasses, appearing like an actress about to step onto a stage. "Sandra, what are you doing here?" "Why I am here? Because the person I cherished most, our mother, has died. Even if I'm estranged from the family, it's only natural I'd come to her funeral," she said while smiling. Perhaps because she had lost weight, her smile looked somewhat eerie. Then, turning her gaze to Linda next to me, she smiled maliciously. "Linda, right. Long time no see. You remember your real mother who gave birth to you, don't you?" "What? How dare she say I missed you?" After she abruptly left us with Linda, and now claiming to be her real mother after neglecting her care? What was she thinking? At that moment, my sister smiled at Linda and said, "Hey Linda, why don't you come live with your real mother?" Then, staring directly at me, she said, "That's how it is, big sis. Thanks for everything up till now." "What? Are you serious? Because Linda is getting noticed as a child actress, right? She's my daughter after all, cute and charming. She may not be very famous yet, but she might become more popular, right? Then, naturally, the money she earns should come to me. I can't miss such an opportunity." "It's not about money. Sandra, Linda is not an object. She's not something you can give or take back." "What? Don't be ridiculous. I'm the one who gave birth to her, not you. You and your husband don't have children, so you just happen to act as parents, right? But that's over now. The real mother has come back, so give Linda back to me." "It's not that simple. You're only thinking about money, aren't you? I can't just hand Linda over to you for such a reason." "What are you talking about? We are blood-related, parent and child. A blood-unrelated aunt has no say." "Absolutely not. There's no way I can send Linda back to you, who never took care of her. Linda is already 11 years old. In just 4 more years, she can decide to be adopted without your permission. We are prepared to take responsibility and raise Linda until then. I can't let this cash cow go." At that moment, as my sister's face twisted in anger, "Enough already," my father's commanding voice echoed. Sandra turned in surprise to see our father with a stern expression. "Father." "Sandra, I'm truly appalled. You abandon your daughter and now, just because she's become famous, you want her back for the money. And what exactly are you doing here today?" "What? I just wanted to see my successful daughter. Today is your mother's funeral, isn't it?" "Oh, that's right. I came to say my final goodbye to Mom." Is that an appropriate outfit for a funeral? Don't you even understand what appropriate funeral attire is? You fool. Father's roar struck Sandra hard. Eek. Father glared at her like a demon. The extent of his anger was clear. Even at your mother's funeral, all you think about is money. But I'm struggling to make ends meet. It's natural to think about money. How could it be Sandra only sees her daughter as a financial asset? While I and the other relatives were appalled, Linda quietly said, "My mom is right here." Linda gripped my arm tightly and continued confidently, "What? What's wrong, Linda? That's your aunt. I'm your real mom. Don't you remember? Did working too much mess up your head?" Despite being a child, Linda responded firmly, "I remember you very well. In fact, I can't forget life with you even if I wanted to, because when I said I'm hungry you would hit me, and you often yelled 'shut up' at me. You never did anything for me. But my parents now, they make meals for me and always listen to me. They also support me a lot to achieve my dreams. That's why I want to stay with my family now." Linda said this as she looked firmly at us, her adoptive parents, with tears in her eyes. The relatives around started murmuring. "What?" She really hit and yelled at her. "Isn't that abuse? Should we call the police?" As these suspicions arose, Sandra began to panic. "No, it's not true. I never abused her." I spoke clearly. "Linda is our daughter. If you try to take her back forcibly, I will report it to the police." Hearing this, Sandra reluctantly left the scene. After a while, Linda smiled and said, "Now we can stay together." Perhaps those tears were part of Linda's act. It seems Linda has an astonishing ability to act. Years passed. When Linda turned 15, we formally adopted her, and she was legally recognized as our daughter in the family registry. Now Linda is thriving as an actress. Meanwhile, Sandra once posted a photo on social media as the mother of famous actress Linda. She claimed to have cherished Linda from a young age, taking her to various places and raising her to be a person full of emotion, listing facts far from the truth, but the post quickly ignited backlash. This was because Linda had disclosed her past in a magazine interview. At that time, Linda was playing a role of a child abandoned by her parents and had suddenly gained significant attention. In the interview, Linda said, "Actually, I too was abandoned by my biological parents, but thanks to my current parents, who raised me with deep love as if I were their own child, I am who I am today." Furthermore, it seemed someone had recorded the incident at the funeral, and Sandra calling Linda a cash cow quickly spread online. As a result of the incident, my sister, who had posted on social media as Linda's mother, was inundated with criticism online, being called a liar, the worst mother, and a scumbag who abandoned her child. Her account was quickly deleted, but in today's world, once information spreads on social media, it's irreversible. Her real name and location leaked, and as a result, she became known everywhere as the parent who called her child a cash cow, making it impossible for her to find regular employment. My sister has felt the weight of public scrutiny in everything she does. In a way, Linda's fame became a sort of divine retribution for her. I heard that my sister is now working at night. Due to the rumors on the internet, she couldn't find regular work and had no choice but to turn to nighttime jobs. She then earned some money which she gave away to a young bartender, and before she knew it, her debts grew, and she ended up being pursued by dangerous people. One time, a call came from an unknown number, but I ignored it. Thinking it was from my sister, I chose to ignore it. I felt that what had happened to her was her own doing. On the other hand, something joyous happened to me. After my mother's funeral, I found out I was pregnant and later gave birth to a healthy baby boy. It was a pregnancy later in life, but thanks to my husband helping with the household chores during the pregnancy, it was an easy birth. Linda also showered her little brother with love, always playing joyfully with him when she came home from school or work. Surrounded by such lovely children, I felt extremely happy. And then, surprisingly, Linda decided to retire from the entertainment industry. The reason was that she had begun to pursue a different dream. There are many children in the world suffering in complex family situations like Linda experienced as a child, many of whom cannot live adequately. Linda wanted to become a support for such children, inspiring her to study in the fields of welfare and volunteering, and she decided to go to university to pursue this path. Naturally, we wholeheartedly support Linda's kindness and determination. Now, Linda has started university. Although her past in the entertainment industry sometimes brought her attention, Linda studied hard with conviction and was blessed with understanding friends. She always seemed happy going to university, and we felt happy seeing her like that. Recently, Linda said to us, "There's someone I want you to meet. Maybe she's going to introduce a boyfriend." We can hardly wait for that day,